What's up guys, welcome to this video. I'm so excited to have you back. So in the previous video we worked on our wallpaper application, right? It's more like a huge masterclass where we did a lot of things, right? And I also uploaded the application, the completed app, to Play Store. So if you notice now, if you go to the demo application, you will notice that I did some updates, right? I made some changes to make things look good. So I've decided to bring in those changes into this video, right? And one of the things that we are going to be looking is pagination, right? We are going to see how to paginate our data that is coming from Firebase. And with previously, what we did is that if you notice in our admin here, where we are fetching users data, let's say where we are fetching or admin wallpaper, if you notice, we are just fetching everything from the admin, right? And then showing it in the app. We are not really doing any pagination. And I noticed that in the admin screen, right here, when we try to like screw, okay, it's causing some issues, more like the data are yanking. So I think it's not loading here. Okay, the data are hanging and it's causing a lot of issues here when the data are plenty, right? So I did some changes and fixed that part. So also, if you come to our home screen, you will notice that this data is always loading, right? You can see now it has closed because the data is consuming a lot of memory. Okay, that's one issue that I noticed. So I'm going to rebuild this app again and show you the other examples. So I just rebuilt the app now. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to add pagination, right? And you guys are going to see how to effectively add pagination in Firebase, right? So that you will not be fetching data every time. It helps to save memory, okay? And also it helps in terms of making a lot of requests to Firebase. It's very good. It's very important that you implement pagination, right? And also, second thing I want to show you guys is that if you notice in this UI now, if I go here, if I go to categories, right, the data is just showing that loading screen. If I go back to home, it's still showing the loading indicator. If I go back again, it's showing the loading. This is not a good practice, right? We don't want to be seeing this thing every time that we are loading, we are navigating into different screen, because it has already fetched that data and cached it before. So we need to eliminate that loading, right? That update, okay? So first thing I'm going to do is to update this admin screen, okay? I'm going to create a new screen entirely for galleries. So you just have to tap it to see all galleries, okay? So to do that, I'm going to go to our admin screen here, right? So, but first thing, I'm going to create a new file called my gallery, okay? So inside this my gallery, I'm just going to create some few UI changes, right? And everything that we need inside here. And so first thing, I'm going to be moving this guy out of here, because we don't need this my gallery anymore, right? We also need to move this whole guy, right, this body, down to this section. So we're going to move this. I'm going to just cut it, okay? Save this data. Now we can just have something simple, right? So what I'm going to do next is to move over to our admin provider, and I'm going to add a new data, like a new list to this add category, add wallpaper. So I just want to make it 3. So here I'm just going to create my gallery, okay? Let's have something like this, my gallery. All right, so save this up, and I'm going to navigate out of the screen and then return now to the admin. You can see now we have the add category, add wallpaper, and my gallery. All right, so quickly, I'm going to go back to our admin home screen. So inside here, I'm just going to add like, let's just say main axis alignment, right? So let's call this, okay, let's just give it space evenly, okay? I know this may not be the best UI, but it's going to definitely give us what we want. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is to go to my gallery. I know it's not really taking effect for now, because we are definitely going to come back to this screen to update it. So let's go back to my gallery, okay? So inside this my gallery, I'm just going to create a simple stateful widget, right, and call it my gallery. So the body, we have app bar, we also have body. So I'm just going to add app bar here. So the app bar is just going to be like an empty app bar, because I want to have the leading icon so that users will be able to go back, right, to the previous page. So we have our body. So inside this body, I'm just going to paste this guy that I copied, right? So we have this guy here that I just copied, and close this. You can see right now we are seeing this error. So what I just need to do is to wrap this guy with a consumer widget, right? And this is just like the normal UI that you know about. Okay, so I'm just like moving it into a new screen. So it's more like the similar thing that we have done in the previous videos. So if you haven't watched that video, I'm going to drop the link. Okay, so you can just start from the beginning to watch the playlist, right? So here we just have the basic things that are already there. Okay, so it's nothing like I didn't add any new thing. I'm going to come back to it when it comes to adding something new. But first, let me update this guy a little bit. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to like get this my column. Okay, and I'll cut it, and then I'll just remove this scrolling indicator here, and then just paste this guy. Okay, and I think I need to add one other thing. Okay, so save it. You can see how it's going to look like. It just spread across the screen. Okay, so this is pretty much it for this guy. Okay, we don't need to do anything. But now this my gallery icon is not really navigating us to the screen. So remember, we have the first case, which is for add category, second case, which is for add wallpaper. So I'm going to add the third case, which is going to be to navigate us to the gallery screen. Okay, so since we haven't created a gallery yet, I'm going to go to our config file, our config directory. Okay, inside the router, just come down below here, just create another one, which we are going to be calling gallery, and this is going to navigate us to my gallery screen. Okay, so once you do that, just do a hot restart, quick one, and while it's going, we can quickly go to our admin provider, because this is where we are going to do the main logics. Okay, so we're just going to change some few things and then get our app running. Okay, so the first thing I want to do here now is to change the name of this. Let's go here now. Okay, and if we go to my gallery, you will notice that nothing is, it's just a blank screen, right? Because we have not triggered the fetch to get that wallpaper. So I'm going to quickly go here, right? We have this get admin wallpaper. So I'm going to change it to get paginated admin wallpaper, right? Because we want to work on pagination now. So I'm going to quickly come down here, right? And change this guy so that to get rid of that error. Then we can go back here and change this guy that we are calling inside the init state. Okay, try to remove imports as well. So we're going to quickly go back to my gallery screen now. So inside here, I'm going to be doing, not inside the gallery, right? Let's say our admin provider, right? This is where I'm going to be doing the magic get paginated data. All right, so pagination, how it works is that we need to like add a limit, like how many items we want to query for the first time. And also we need to have another object, start after document is provided by Firebase. We are no longer going to be using this guy. And also for us to make pagination effective, we are going to be using the order by, because we already have date time in our app, right? It's going to order it based on the date that the item were added. But like the first item or like the last item that was added, we need to order it from the top to bottom, right? So inside here now, what I'm going to do first, because we need doing pagination, you will need the last document, right? So based on that last document, you'll be able to fetch other datas. And also we need a limit, right? You can specify your limit, but in this video, we are going to use 10 as the limit. So first thing I want to do now is I'm going to remove this guy. Okay, let's just comment it out first. So I'm just going to have something like final results. Okay, then we have the await. Okay, then we can call the wallpaper ref. Then I can say dot where. So just similar thing that we are doing, where auto ID is equal to UID, right? Then we can now do dot ordered by. So I want to order this based on the date created. Okay, and it's going to be in descending order, right, from top to bottom. So once we get that, I'm going to add a limit. So I want to limit this based on by 10. All right, and then I can get the data. But I know something else is wrong here. When we do this, it's only going to get 10 items, right? And there will be no way that pagination will work effectively. So for us to make pagination work effectively, we need to add something called a start after document. And this start after document is more like it's just used to store the previous document, like the last document that was retrieved from Firebase, okay, based on the 10 limit int. So let's say like we have a limit of 10. It returns the first 10 elements, right? Then the 10th element is what we are going to save in the last document, right? Then once we fetch another one again, if we want to fetch another one again, we are going to pass the last document into the start after document. Then it will now retrieve the remaining 10 elements, right, after the last one that was retrieved. Then once we retrieve it, we are going to update the last document to the 20th element again, right? Now we have a new last document just like that, and we'll be doing it until there is no more data in the database to retrieve. Okay, so I already have this guy here. So I have this thing that I created, this getter and setter. So as you can see, we have a document snapshot, we have the last document. So it's nullable, right? Because you cannot just assign something like that. So we have a getter here, and we also have a setter that is going to set the last document for us. So what we are going to do here now is to go down here below. So start after document, we are going to pass this document, right? So there's an issue with this because I noticed while doing it, right, I was trying to run a test, okay? I noticed that when this thing is null, Firebase refused to return any data because it's seeing it as null. So that means I can't fetch any data. It's null, nothing can be done, all right? So what I did was to update it, okay? So the first thing I did was to create, I tried to like make this query snapshot to be global, right? So what I did first was to create an initial variable for it, which is empty, right? It's not assigned to any variable. Then the second thing I did was to check if the admin is null, if the admin wallet, right? The admin wallpaper is empty. That means nothing has been retrieved initially and there is no last document. What I did was to just fetch the limit without adding start after document, right? Then if the admin wallpaper is not empty, then what I'm doing is I'm passing the start after document and then I'm sending in the last document, right? That's what I'm doing. So here now, we also need to update some few things here because we are not just going to send all the data. If we do it like this, it's going to be replacing the previous data and there will be some conflict, right? So what I did, I needed to like check first. After looping through it, okay, I just created our data and then we added our ID here. So I did not use this temp list anymore because it's not important and there's no point doing sort by because we are already ordering it based on the descending order, based on the date created. So that is already handling the data for us. So we don't need to do any additional sorting to the data, right? So what I did here first, I just call the admin wallpaper.add data, right? So just add it directly into the admin wallpaper. But I noticed that when I did this, I got some duplicated data, right? It was just adding the data, duplicating it for us. So what I did, I made sure that there is no duplicate. So what I did, I had to like sort that list, filter out the so I check if it exists. So I just check if admin wallpaper.any, let's say there's any element, okay, that let's say elements dot wallpaper ID. So I'm filtering it based on the wallpaper ID. If there's any element that contains this wallpaper ID, so I'm not going to add. But if there is no element, so I check if it does not exist, right? Then what we can do here is just to go ahead and add the data into our admin list. And this was able to give me what I wanted and everything worked out fine, okay? So once we do this, the last thing we are going to do now after this whole looping, right? Just aside here, we are going to call the set document, which is more like the last document, right? I'm going to set it to the results, right? Doc, okay, dot last. All right, so this is more like our getter here that I created, okay, to just set the last document that we need. Okay, so based on that last document, now we can just go ahead and do every other thing that we want to do. So this is pretty much it, okay? But there's some other thing that we need to do in Firebase, okay? We need to like set up the we need to create an index in our Firebase console, indices, okay, because it's needed because we are using order by. Whenever you're using order by in Firebase, you need to create that index, and it's more like a one-time thing depending on what you're ordering by, right? So if you change this order by to something else, you will still go to Firebase to create another one. So what I'm going to do here now is to go to our gallery screen. So inside this gallery screen, I'm just going to create a method so that we'll be able to retrieve that data. So first thing, remember, based on this data, let's go back to our admin here, our gallery. Okay, this is it. I think, okay, it's not scrolling right now. I think it's still saving the previous data that we have, right? So what I'm going to do here, because it's not scrolling because we have this physics and screen wrap. So I'm just going to remove that. Okay. So now it's scrollable, right? So there's something I want to do. You can see right now we are just getting all the data. There's no pagination, okay, which is not a good practice and it's not going to help in terms of performance, okay? So here what I'm going to do is to add a screw controller. So that screw controller will detect when we get to the end of, when we have screwed to the end of the screen, and then once we get to the end, it's going to fetch more data again, just like that. So we're going to call the paginated data again, right? Just what I'm going to do here now is to create a screw controller. Let's just call this screw controller, all right? And I'm just going to call this screw controller, okay? It's going to be a late variable. Then next thing I'm going to do now is to initialize that variable real quick. So I'm going to initialize it here. While we have done that, I'm also going to create a listener for it, more like screw.add listener. All right. So inside here, I'm just going to create, let's just call this a screw. Let's call this screw listener. All right. So the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to create this screw listener in a different class entirely. All right. In a different method entirely. So I'm just going to create that method real quick. So right here, what I'm going to do is to call, I'm going to check if our screw controller, okay, the position, like the pixel, the last one, if is actually a screw, like if we have gotten to the bottom of the screen, I'm going to check to detect when the user have gotten to the end of the screen, right? So I'm going to say here, real quick, we can just have something called pixel, like screw controller, okay, screw controller dot position, right, dot max screw extent, okay. So this will help us to detect, to know when the user have gotten to the end of the screen, okay. Then once that the user have gotten to the end of the screen, we can now trigger the get paginated admin data, right? So we can just say get paginated admin data. All right. So while we have this, I'm going to quickly screw up here, right? Because we need to trigger this guy whenever the user comes to this screen for the first time. So right here, I'm going to call this, okay, get paginated admin wallpaper, right, for the first time. Then I also need to create this screw listener. We already have it here. Then the second thing I'm going to do is to dispose the screw listener, okay? So real quick, I'm going to come here and just call dispose method with the screw listener disposed. And then inside here, I'm going to register add the clients to the controller. So we have our screw controller inside here, all right? So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to save this and then try to restart, okay? Just to get everything in order. And from here, we can quickly go back to the admin screen, click on my gallery, all right? So as you can see, there is an error that says, this is what I was trying to explain to you guys, that if you're adding dates created or if you're adding order by, you will definitely create that index, okay, in your Firebase, right? Your data store, okay? So as you can see here, there is an error, Firestore listing for query, blah, 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 order by date created, and fade precondition. So that means we need to like description. The query requires an index, so you can create it here. So we're just going to click on this link, okay, open it up. It's going to open up our browser for us. So from here, you can just select the account that you're using to sign up with. So this is more like the account of your Firebase. So once you do that, it's going to open up this screen, right? You're going to see this screen that says create or update indices. Okay, so we can just leave it the way it is. Just click on save. and it's building, so you're just going to wait a little bit for it to show active, right, or enabled. All right, so after some few minutes I saw it changed to enabled. That means everything has been set, the status is now enabled, so we can go ahead and start using it in our Firebase project. So going back to our Firebase project, I'm going to click on my gallery again, and if you notice now it has fetched the data for us. Okay, so right now you can see there is no error, nothing, we just have our data. So now I'm going to test out the pagination that we just did to see if it works as expected. So right here you can count the data. We have 1 2 3 4 5 6, right, 7 8 9 10. If you scroll down you can see it's stuck. So at that point it's going to trigger this guy again. Once it's stuck, it's going to trigger this guy, and once the guy gets triggered, it's going to like refetch more data again. If you get to the end, it stocks, it triggers the data again, it stocks, right, just like that. So right now what I want to do now, instead of having this stock feeling, I want to show like a loading indicator somewhere here that says getting more data, right? So to do that, I'm going to go to our gallery. I'm going to quickly wrap this grid view with a stack widget. So I think to get the stack widget, I will just wrap it with column and then change this stack, this column to a stack. Then from there, what I'm going to do is just to add there's this stuff that I already created, so I can just add it to fetch more data. So just below the grid view, so it's going to be visible, so that nothing is going to block it. So save this guy. What I'm doing here is if the view state is busy, I'm going to like show this guy real quick. Okay, so I'm going to save this guy, and I think instead of doing that, it's best to do something like this. Just check for this. Okay, so I'm going to check if the screw controller dot position or index is at the end, right, then we can just call fetching data. So I'm going to scroll down now to the end. I think we already have more data, so I'll just scroll down to the end. You can see we have fetching more data. So once you fetch, you scroll to the end, you can see it's showing that fetching more data, right? So in your own case, you can just design it the way you want, more like maybe showing a loading indicator or whatever you want to show. It's see a nice experience. Cool. So now that we are done with the gallery, you can see the experience is so smooth. There's no hanging while we are scrolling. Everything is just smooth experience, right? So once you get to the bottom, it's going to show us that fetching more data. You can now scroll fetching more data just like that. Okay, and the data will keep fetching. Cool. So now let's quickly go and fix, let's do add pagination to our home screen, right? Because this wallpaper screen is not paginated, so I need to like also create pagination for it. So quickly what we're going to do now is to quickly go to our wallpaper screen. I think that's more like around our home screen here. Yeah, so here we have our home screen. We also have our home provider. Okay, so I'm just going to do the same thing that we did for the admin provider inside here. So first thing I'm going to do is to change this guy to fetch paginated, let's say fetch recent paginated data. Okay, paginated wallpaper, and I'm going to scroll down and fix that error here. And while we have that, I'm also going to create the two things that we created here. I think one was we created this last document getter, so I'm going to get that and also put it inside home wallpaper provider quickly. So while we have that, and I'm also going to scroll down to the get paginated wallpaper as well. We're also going to create this same thing because you can see they are just similar stuff, right? So feel free to just copy the whole of this. Okay, so they are just the same thing. Okay, so I'm going to go back now to our let's see, home wallpaper provider. Okay, so right inside our fetch paginated data, I'm going to replace this whole guys, okay, with this same data, right? But now I'm going to do some changes. Okay, so I'm not going to query based on auto ID anymore, but rather I'm going to change this guy now to, I think, recent wallpapers. Okay, also change it here too to recent wallpapers, like so. And here we don't need to query based on the auto ID, right? We can just order the item directly we are also going to remove this and order the items directly. So now we have our paginated data for fetching recent wallpapers. Okay, so now what I'm going to do quickly is to go to our home screen to add our screw controller and all that. But I want to show us a different method. If you go to this our gallery, you can see we are using screw controller. But now I want to show you guys another method, a way that we can also get when user screws to the end of the screen, right? And then when they screw to the end, we can now fetch the data back. So what I'm going to do here now is, though we have this guy which is showing error, so I'm just going to like comment this guy out, and then I will call let's change this guy to fetch paginated wallpaper. So this is going to be triggered when users come to the screen for the first time, right? So the next thing I want to do now is, this is our grid view. I don't want to use controller, right, for handling this. I want to show you a different method entirely. So now what I'm going to do here is to wrap this guy with a notification listener, right? We're going to add the type. So this is going to be screw notification, right? So inside here we have the on notification callback that just takes the notification, right? So what I'm going to do here now is just to check the same thing that we did in our my gallery, which is this guy. So let me just copy it, okay? So it will make things easier. So I will come here and just paste it here. So what I'm going to do here is to say, if now we don't need to use position anymore, it's going to be metric. So I'm going to say notification dot metrics, right, to just get that pixel max accent and all that. So I'm going to change this guy now to wallpaper provider, and I'm going to change the method to get paginated wallpaper. Because we already have this fetch wallpaper method, there's no point creating this guy again. So I'm just going to like call this method directly, and here you can just return true because it needs a return statement. Okay, so just save that. And while we have that, I think the next thing we need to do is to show okay, let me just show you an experiment with this one first. So I'm going to do a hot restart. Okay, all right, so now that we have this, I'm going to scroll down a little. You can see once we get to the bottom, it's showing the loading again. If we get to the bottom, it's showing the loading. That means new data is coming in just like that. So we need to fix that loading indicator. I don't want it to be showing every time that we are scrolling. So what I'm going to do here is just to check. I'm going to add a logic in our show method. So view state should only show when the state is busy and when recent wallpaper is empty, right? That's the only time that it needs to show. So I'm going to save that and then scroll down. You can see now it did not show, but new data was fetched. It did not show, new data was fetched. It did not show, new data was fetched, just like that. Okay, so now we need to add that fetching new data below here, right? And is end, right? We can set it to false here. Okay, then what is going to happen here is, if the screw position is at the end, what I can just do is to call is end equal to true. All right, then else we need to have the else statement here, where we can just say is end equal to false, right? All right, so once you do that, you can just come here and just use a set state. But if you still want to use our provider, feel free to use it. It's not going to give you any issue, right? So this is end. You can see it's shouting now that we have not used it anywhere. So I'm going to quickly come down here. Let's grab this method that we already have before. So yeah, let me just grab it real quick. Then I'm going to go back here now. Just right here, I'm going to wrap this guy with our stack widget, just the same thing we did in the previous section. So here now, I'm going to change this guy with stack. All right, then let's come down a little bit. Just below here, I'm going to replace this guy with is end, so it should only show if its end is true. All right, and then make sure you import this guy. Okay, and here you have it. So we're going to save it. All right, now if I try to scroll down, let's go down to the bottom where we haven't seen any data. You're going to see that it's going to show that fetching more data. You can see that. So if you scroll down again, you can see fetching more data, just like that. The data keeps showing while we keep scrolling. Okay, so this is more like what we want, and everything looks good for that one. You can see you can use screw listener. You can also use notification listener to handle stuffs like this when it comes to pagination, like to get the maximum screw extent, okay, or the pixel. All right, so now you can see now another issue that I noticed is that when we go to category, it's still showing that loading indicator. If we come back here, let's go back here, come back here, you can see it's no more showing because we have fixed it with this stuff that we did here. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing for category. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the category, let's go to the category provider. I'm going to fix this inside the provider right now. So here we are calling fetch category, right? And we are calling this guy to the view state. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to check if the category that is empty, then we call view state. We need to call view state only when the category list is empty. That means when the user comes to this screen for the first time, right? So now if I go back here, come back here, you can see we are not seeing that loading indicator anymore. So it's just having that smooth feel, like, you know, the data has been cached before, we have our previous data and everything looks great. Okay, and another thing again, if you notice in that the new app that is on Play Store, I actually updated this search wallpaper. I added a circular one here, so just to make everything sweet. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to quickly implement that so that we don't need to, like, you know, have this is not really looking cool, this search that we have here. So to do that, what I'm going to do is to quickly go to our root screen. Okay, it should be somewhere around here. We have our root screen. Let's go to root screen. So right here, what I'm going to do now is just to update this guy a little bit. Okay, so I already have that. I use a position and every other thing to accomplish this. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to change this guy now to a stack widget. All right, I know it's going to throw some error, okay, because you can see that stuff is now hiding. So here now I don't need to use expanded anymore. I'm going to remove the expanded widget. So let's remove this, okay, and also remove, I'm also going to remove, I think I'm going to move this expanded to the top because we need this search to show at the bottom, like at the top. Let it show on top of this. You can see now it's visible. So now we need to update it to look like what we want. All right, so what I'm going to do is to add, I'm going to grab this guy. Let's just wrap this guy with a circular avatar. Okay, let's say circle avatar. All right, I think that should be it. Why isn't it showing? I think I spelled it wrongly. Circle avatar. Okay, so here now we have our child, we have our color. So I'm just going to remove this color and this other one, right? We just have the icon like this. So I'm going to like quickly grab this, right? So I don't need this role, so we can just remove. Okay, let's just remove from here, right? From here down to this section, and okay, so I'm going to save it. You can see now we have the search here. So I'm going to move it now to the right of the screen. So what I'm going to do here is just to like wrap this guy with a positioned widget. Okay, and inside here I'm just going to add top 50. Then I'm also going to add right 20. Okay, just like so. All right, so quickly save it, and you can see now it's looking pretty just around here. So this is pretty much what we want, and we have the height here to be 20, which is inside the stack widget, and everything is looking as it's supposed to. All right, so we're going to save this. I need to remove this safe area because we don't need this safe area. So I'm going to like remove this. Okay, so I want it to look pretty. You can see this is going to extend. Now if we are scrolling, you can see how it's just extending beyond into the app bar. Now this is looking so fantastic. So we can click on search, and it's going to take us to the search screen where we can search. You can see now this is looking pretty, and the loading is no longer showing. So guys, as you can see, everything is working. We can go to our categories, right? We can also go to the wallpaper home. You can view the wallpaper. You can see everything that you need to see. and you can see it's no more longer showing that loading indicator, and everything is just moving freely. So now another thing that you want to add is pull down to refresh, right? If you notice in the app on Play Store, there's a pull down to refresh functionality, which is just more like it's going to call, once you do pull down to refresh, I think it's going to be around, let's go to the home screen, right? So it's going to be here right in the grid view. So you're just going to wrap this grid view with a refresh. Let's say refresh. Okay, like so. Then we have our on refresh. So inside the on refresh, what we are just going to do is to call the view wallpaper logic. Okay, just going to call view wallpaper. Okay, so when we are calling view wallpaper now, what we need to do instead is we need to clear the data, right? Because on refresh, you need to get the new data. Then it's going to clear the data, and once it clears the data, we are not going to get like 10 data only. Then users cannot scroll down again. So in this logic here, I'm going to go to our paginated data here. So here I'm going to add a Boolean flag that says is refresh, just to tell user that, okay, this is actually the user is trying to refresh the UI. Okay, so I'm going to add is refresh here. Let's quickly go up here and add that same thing here. So when users are refreshing their data, right, what I'm going to do is just to like once you're calling on refresh, we are going to delete, we are going to clear okay, not here. I think we are going to clear, once you call is refresh, we are just going to clear the this is not spelled correctly. Okay, what is going to happen here is we are going to clear the recent wallpaper, right, and then we fetch the data again. So some parts of the app are showing error, so we need to actually know who is calling who. So we are also going to add is refresh here, right? Okay, so is refresh by default is going to be like, it's going to be null, right? And it's going to be a named parameter. So what I'm going to do is just to add that name parameter here. Okay, is refreshed, and I'm going to quickly pass it to this guy that is requiring it. Then here now, when users are trying to refresh, calling pull down to refresh, I'm going to set it is refresh. I'm going to set it to true. All right. So now notice if I save this and then I try to come down here and swipe up, you can see it's loading a new fresh data for us. Now the pagination starts again. You can see pagination starts again, right? Just like that. So this is pretty much everything I wanted you guys to see. You can see how to use notification listing out to add pagination. You can also see how to use order by. You can see how to use order by start after document to perform pagination with Firebase, and you can also see how to use notification listing now to get the maximum scroll index, and also use scroll notifier as well, the one we did inside our gallery screen with the admin provider, right? Think more like inside my gallery we use a scroll listener, right, to handle that. You can see how everything works, and we also remove the loading that keeps showing and also updated the search. Okay, thank you so much guys for watching, and do well to subscribe, like, and also if you love this video, share it with your friends. And when you like it, actually helps the YouTube algorithm to suggest this video to other people that might be of need. Okay, so thank you so much guys. I'm going to see you all in the next video.